What's going on, everybody? It's Travis here from Travis Takes the Loop, and today I am joined by the Yorkville football head coach Dan McGuire. And Dan, how you doing here? How you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. Can't complain.
Uh,
We got some decent weather and got some football in this morning, so doing well.
yes, sir. So I'm just gonna start from the beginning. What first got you interested in coaching football?
Well, I think there's a lot of people that are unsure of what they want to do, throughout the high school and middle school ages, and even through college, obviously. But middle school, I had some friends that used to call me coach, and kind of meant as a way to kind of like make fun of me or kind of get at me a little bit, and so ever since then, I've always remember that in middle school, and so I think it's something I've always wanted to do. Everybody in my family are either teachers or coaches, and so it's really all I've ever known, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do any other job, and so it's just something that it was part of my family, and something I just have always enjoyed being around sports and being around high school athletics.
So did you play football growing up?
I did. Yep. So I started playing when I was a seventh grader. It was my first time actually playing tackle football. Started in seventh grade and then played all the way through high school. And like I said, my dad was my sophomore coach in high school.
Hmm.
Um, and then ended up playing for 4 years at Aurora University as well. So that puts me in about 10 years of playing. And I was just thinking the other day that since seventh grade, I've been coaching or playing football every fall except for COVID. Pretty much straight since that seventh grade year, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah. What position did you play?
So always wanted to be a quarterback. I wasn't didn't have the strongest arm, so I did play some quarterback here and there, but mostly I was a safety. So played safety throughout high school, and then that's primarily what I played in college too. So, um, I dabbled a little bit at quarterback here and there, and went to some quarterback camps, but just unfortunately was not blessed with the strongest arm in the world. So, but safety was something that I could kind of be a coach on the field too, and try to help my teammates out and make sure we're all lined up and everything.
So did you always know you wanted to work in education and athletics?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's kind of weird to say, but it's I don't know how to do anything else. All my relatives and growing up, that's what we did, and that was part of my family. I look at people that do work a non-education job and wonder how they do it, just because everything seems to kind of just never ending.
Yeah.
One thing I like about education is you start a year, you finish a year, and you get some of that finality that, hey, I actually accomplished something, and then this is what I'm gonna do next year to get better. And being around education and athletics is something I think I've always wanted to do, and it doesn't feel like a job. I think that's something too that everybody tells you, is that if you can find something that doesn't feel like work, then that's going to be something you can enjoy and do for a long time.
Who were some of the biggest influences on you early in your coaching career?
Obviously my dad. Just his ability to reach kids, and I thought one other thing that was really unique about my dad was he there was never something he wouldn't do for one of his players. So back in the day, it was okay to pick a kid up and give him a ride to school, or I remember hearing stories about him going through a garbage dumpster looking for retainers that the kids threw away on accident, and so I think that was a good lesson for me, that you want everybody to have a good experience, and it's okay to do some of those little things to try to help people out. So beyond that, my high school coach, Coach Ira Jefferson, um, he was just a really energetic, let it all hang out. He was just somebody that I really enjoyed playing for, because of his energy, and I felt like he had our backs. And I think that's one thing I really learned from him, was to support your players no matter what. And then throughout college, I have, my head coach, I knew for a long time. I went to church with him, Coach Scott, and same thing, just his ability to do whatever he could for his athletes. And one thing Coach Scott really did a good job of was showing people he had your back and would do anything for you. And then just through coaching, working with other coaches, actually a guy that was one of my college coaches, Coach Nauman, he now coaches with us, but man, he was just his energy and just a student of the game is really fun to be able to work with. And then and I try to emulate that as well. And then the first head coach that hired me is Coach Furco, Chris Furco at Yorkville High School. Again, just great energy, great relationship builder with kids and coaches. And so, I learned from some of my own coaches and then some of the people that I was able to work with.
So that kind of leads to my next question. What originally attracted you to Yorkville, and what made you want to build your career there?
So kind of funny that you bring that up. I had some relatives that lived in Yorkville growing up. I lived in Aurora as a kid, and I had an aunt and uncle that lived in Yorkville, and we used to drive to Yorkville for holidays to visit them. And I remember thinking how far away Yorkville seemed and how it was like, we were going to the middle of nowhere. I used to mess with my aunt about how when they got a Walgreens, how it was a really big deal. And just used to kind of make fun of them about how small the town it was. And so it's pretty crazy how that, I never could have envisioned myself there as a kid. But actually, a guy that my dad coached with by the name of Bob Williams was at one point the head football coach at Yorkville High School. And when I graduated, he was an administrator at Yorkville High School. And so he was instrumental in bringing me to Yorkville because he worked with my dad and they knew each other very well. And then also a guy by the name of Joel Wyeth. Joel was a guy from Aurora, and he was actually my T-ball coach growing up and still a really good friend to this day. And so Joel and Bob Williams were uh, friends of the family and people that I knew growing up, and were like, I don't know if they were smart or dumb enough to hire me as a teacher, but that's how I ended up there.
How have you seen Yorkville change since you've arrived, or
I
since you
think every
first arrived?
teacher, yeah, I think every teacher and coach, when they are looking at their school, there obviously are going to be changes. But I don't think anybody could say that they've had quite as many changes as we have had as a school and in the amount of time that I've worked at Yorkville. I remember playing in the playoffs, playing against Geneseo, excuse me, the first year that I coached with Coach Furco. And, I think that was 4 or 5A football. Our enrollment, I think we had about 800 or 900 kids at Yorkville. And now
Hmm.
I think we're at 2,200 kids. And we're playing 7A football. So the amount of growth that we've had in Yorkville is pretty staggering. Um, and I think so with that obviously becomes more kids, but I think also comes more diversity, which I think is great. We have a lot more variety of kids, and so it actually makes me more comfortable. Kind of similar to, it really is very similar to Westboro High School where I went to school at. There's a lot of
Hmm.
similarities in that regard, and so I'm actually becoming more and more comfortable at Yorkville as the years go by. But yeah, that growth is pretty tremendous. I think everybody kind of saw Yorkville as a farm town too, probably the first 10 years. But now when
Yeah.
people say Yorkville, it's more of a Naperville-ish type. It's just interesting how people have. I think we fit under kind of a different category as a town too, just with our growth. And I think most importantly, we got a Costco. So who would have thought that? Making fun of my aunt about
Yeah.
it getting a Walgreens, and on my way, just recently, I was in my car driving by Costco, which I would never have guessed. So, but the
Yeah.
really cool thing about Yorkville too is, yes, we've changed, but it's still one high school. It's one town. And so I still think there's that really great group of people that have been in Yorkville for a long period of time that are still very supportive of schools and, the community, like everybody comes to the games on Friday nights, it still really has that small town feel.
Yeah. What makes Yorkville High School a special place for students and athletes?
I think student athletes. I think first of all is there's. I think our board of education has done a really good job of creating opportunities for our kids. Um, whether academically, I don't think there's any courses that we don't offer. So, if somebody is, like I'm sure yourself, you're into media and, video production, we have classes like that now that we never have had previously. So basically, if you have an interest, there's a pathway for you at our school, which I think is pretty exciting. I've got some kids that are eventually going to be going to Yorkville High School, and I'm excited for them to go there because of the opportunities they have, whether it's an AP class or if somebody wants to do welding, there's opportunities for that. I mean, it's just pretty much anything you can imagine. And I think athletically, we've always played a really in very difficult conferences. Like I said,
Mhm.
when I first got there, you know, our conference was pretty amazing. I mean, we were playing some really tough schools, in the area. I mean, we had some tough seasons with some of the teams we had to play against. Like the Batavias, the Genevas, the Sycamores, the
Mhm.
Morrises.
Yeah.
Um, you name it. We've had some really tough competition, and now it's the same, if not even more difficult, with the Oswego's, Manukas, Bolingbrookes. So I mean, if you go to Yorkville High School, you're going to be playing against the best athletes in the state of Illinois. Bolingbrook, basketball year in, year out, they're top four in state. Same is true for football. Oswego was a top two finisher in football this past year. Um, so, I think the opportunities academically and then the competition, I mean, it's as good as it gets. I mean, you can't say that there's many more conferences that are as competitive as ours.
So, as both an educator and coach, what do you enjoy most about working with students?
I'd say a couple things. One, I think would be that growth moment, that aha moment,
Mhm.
where, like for example, today I'm working with receivers and I'm talking about, we got to be attention to detail. And then, they're listening to me, but they're not really hearing me. And then we get out and
Yeah.
we actually had a situation where we had two receivers run into each other. I'm like, hey, we didn't do what we just talked about, right? And then you can see that aha moment where that mistake's not going to happen again. And where you're actually making an impact on a kid, I think is what I really enjoy doing, and where you're getting that message across to somebody.
Mhm.
I think that's a short term thing. I think a long term aspect is, just building relationships with kids that eventually are going to be adults and that you are going to get an opportunity to see grow. um, right now, I don't know. I think we've got maybe six. I don't want to say six or seven, but that's what I was going to say, showing my age. But I think we got at least six, maybe eight former players on our staff right now, which is
Wow.
pretty amazing. And so to have guys that I got to coach, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever the case may be, that want to come
Mhm.
back and be a part of our program and coach with us, that's really a big deal. And I think for me, that's probably one of the biggest things right now is to, when I step back and think like how lucky I am to work with guys that I coach, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. So it kind of leads me to my next question a little bit. How would you describe the culture of Yorkville football?
I think I don't think we're flashy. We are. I pride ourselves in just being a team and a program that is always going to be a team that is respected for being a hardworking group.
Mhm.
I think talent will come and go. You can never predict what position is going to be the best year in and year out. So we're never going to
Yeah.
say that we're a quarterback driven team. We're never going to say that we're a receiver driven team. We're going to be a hardworking driven team, and we're going to, work. We're going to give us our hardest effort every Friday night. And I think, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's something that I would like for other teams to say about us. And then also just defense first. I started out as a defensive coach, and I really believe that, having a good defense can win you a lot of football games. So I would say that we're driven, we're a hardworking group. Defense is our priority. And then I would say lastly, that we try to play smart. Um, you know,
Yeah.
we, we'd spend a lot of time as coaches watching film, and if we can get a leg up on anybody or learn some things formationally, um, whatever, anything we can do to give our kids a better opportunity and to be successful. As coaches, we do that. We try to watch as much film as we can and be give our kids that the best opportunity to be successful as we can.
Yeah. So you kind of partially answered the next question, but what are some values you try to instill into your players?
I think being humble is really important. But that's a slippery slope because you want your kids to be confident as well. We
Yeah.
talk about just coming in and out of the huddle can really make or break a play. If we get a break out of a huddle and we're not confident coming out, then that gives that defense that like, wow, they're not organized. We can stop them. But when you get out of the huddle, you break and it's consistent. Everybody's hustling the line of scrimmage. That sends a message that we're prepared and we're ready to go. So I guess being confident, but at the same time humble. Respect everybody, fear no one. I think would be a big thing that I would like our kids to know. And I think also with that is preparation can win you anything in life. If you're prepared
Hmm.
in regards to, if you're prepared, if you practice shooting free throws consistently, you're going to be successful. If you
Yeah.
work hard in the weight room, good things are going to happen. And I think so. I would say being humble and fearing nobody, and then I would also say just how important preparation is. You can't.
Mhm.
There's no shortcuts to life.
So what does a successful season look like beyond wins and losses?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that a lot of coaches struggle with sometimes year in and year out. I would say for me, um, a successful season is having athletes want to come back and be a part of your program. So, like juniors want to come back and play as seniors. Um, we talk about seniors wanting to come back and be a part of our program, whether coaching, weight room, being a part of our coaching staff. I think if kids return and they want to come, I think that shows you it's a good year. There's been years where we've been 2-7, and we've had the next year we've had 70, 75 kids come out for the team. And that's because they had a good experience. They want to do it again. So it's not based solely on your wins and losses. And then there's been years where we've had good years, and for whatever reason, we don't have as many kids come out that next year. And that's where you, as a coach, you got to be like, what can I do to make it so more players want to be a part of what we're doing? And so I think that would be my judge of a good year is just that response to the kids after the season. Like, do they want to come back? Are they ready? Are they hungry to play another year?
So what are some of the biggest challenges of coaching high school football today?
It's a good question, and I don't think it's just today. I think it's just always. I think it's a challenge for me is like I said, just getting kids that um, motivated to want to play your sport. I mean, every high school sport right now is you have to be extremely dedicated to play any of these sports now. That baseball you got to play consistently. Wrestling you've got to wrestle consistently. You've got to you got to hone your skills. And the same is true for football. You got to work in the weight room. You can't take months off. And so I think that's really difficult with high school sports because high school kids want to drive. Have a driver's license. They want to drive. They want to get a job. So I think just getting kids to want to be a part of the program and get them to come out. I think that's difficult. Um, I think as a coach, getting the most out of your team. There's been years where I look back and like, man, I should have done this more. I should have done that more. And I think that regret game is tough. Um, where you have like a receiver that you feel like you need to take better advantage of and utilize more, or defensively, hey, I should have got this kid in this situation. I think um, you want to make because every year you have different talent. You can't recruit saying, hey, we need to have a 6'4" receiver every year. Where this is what we're gonna do every year. You're gonna have new pieces, and you got to figure out ways to utilize them to the best of your ability. And I think that's really challenging as a high school coach because you just never know who's going to walk through the door. and then you want to make sure that you give those kids a good experience and make the most of it. So I think that's pretty challenging. And then I think new challenge is social media. Um,
Yeah.
I think like for example, my son's playing baseball. Anybody can look up my son's game and Game Changer and see how he played, right?
Yeah.
And then so he's thinking in his head, I had a bad game, or I did this. My buddies are gonna search it up and they're gonna see what I had, and um, that's a lot of pressure for kids that are 10 years old to be on Game Changer and looking at their stats. Like I had no clue what my stats were in high school or when I played baseball and youth baseball. I have no idea. And I never cared about it and I never worried about it. But I do think that kids are under a way more of a microscope than they ever have been. And like I said, Game Changer, um, Instagram, Twitter, whatever is out there, like a kid could have videotaped somebody else doing something in a game, and then it could go viral, and next thing you know, you're embarrassed about something that you shouldn't have to worry about. And I just feel like kids are being forced to grow up a lot faster and worried about social media and how's it going to look when that's just not fair to high school kids. And I think that's a big challenge is trying to navigate that with kids and make it so that they don't care what people think. And it's easy for me to say, but when you're 15, 16 years old and, if somebody takes a picture wrong or a video wrong, and, that's something that could live with you the rest of your life. So I think that's a big
Yeah.
challenge that I think I need to figure out better ways to educate some of our players on, because it's just amazing how much time people spend on social media and how worried people are about what other people think.
Hmm. So next we're going to talk about like student athlete development. So the first question is, how do you define a student athlete?
Um, I think I don't mean to be vague, but I would hope every single kid that I come in contact with is a student athlete. I think anytime anybody asks me any questions about like, hey, we've got this, we've got that, I always say school comes first. And we're here to get these kids a good education. Um, so I think obviously school comes first, but I do think there's a lot of kids that are better students because of athletics. Um,
Yeah.
even for myself, when I'm coaching football, I feel like I'm more motivated to do everything. It sounds weird because you have less time as a dad, but during coaching, I'm more motivated to like, let's go, let's keep moving. Whereas when the season's over, you start kind of letting your guard down a little bit, and I don't think I'm as impactful or as motivated as I am outside of the season. So I think that's true for a lot of athletes. They like to be challenged. And, when you have to go to school, you have to make sure you're there to practice. You want to make sure you have good grades to stay eligible. So I do think that a lot of athletes are motivated, you know, to do better academically in season. And so I do think, obviously a student athlete is somebody that, academics is important, but I think also motivated through athletics, I think would be kind of my long-winded definition.
So what advice do you give players who want to continue playing football in college?
It's a great question. Something that's changing has changed a lot too. In just the last 5 to 6 years is actually probably less than that. Is college football has changed dramatically, and you can't compare yourself to people 10 to 15 years ago. We had an offensive lineman that graduated probably 3 years ago. Um, that I had a Big Ten program tell me that if this was 10 years ago, he would be offered by Big Ten schools. But they were not offering him as a scholarship because of the difference in the transfer portal and some of the regulations, just the changes with the recruiting process. So, um, I think one thing I would say is it's really good because you could go to where I went. When back when I was in college, if you went to a Warrior University, you were never going to be had any chance to play anywhere else. Now, if you have a great
Hmm.
year at a Warrior University, you could eventually play at Illinois State. And then after Illinois State, you could
Yeah.
eventually play at the University of Illinois. Um, there's so much mobility now that it's pretty amazing. However, the flip side is true, where if you do go to University of Illinois as a freshman, you could leave there within 3 months. You know, so that
Yeah.
mobility is it works both ways. So my message to any kid that wants to play college athletics is you just need a shot. You just need an opportunity. You can't compare yourself to people 15 years ago that were getting scholarships to the University of Illinois. Those are much more difficult to come by now than they ever have been. And so I think it's just, you know, hey, if you're good enough to play at that level, you will be found. Um, and it may not happen right out of high school. I almost approach it now where almost some of these schools are almost junior colleges now, where you can. Oh, I shouldn't say junior colleges. I would say I compare it more to a baseball minor leagues. You got double A, single A, triple A, and then you have the major leagues, and it seems like that's kind of how college football has become. Like I said, where I went to, it's kind of like single A baseball right now, where at Aurora University. Then you got double A, triple A, and then eventually work your way down the road. And I think it's fluid like that too, where you could be at single A and play triple A the next year. And so again, get good film out there, get a chance, and anything can happen. And I don't think that was true 10 years ago. But it's hard for kids to realize that because they want to immediately say, I'm going to Illinois State or I'm going to this such and
Hmm.
such a school. And so it's deflating for a lot of kids, but it's actually, it can also be a positive in that you can be found anywhere. And then
So,
lastly,
what are some habits Oh, sorry.
no problem. I was just gonna say also just academics to your question previously. Um, I've seen some kids that have lost opportunities to play at that high level because their grades aren't where they should be. And colleges have, there's there's 20 kids that can run a 4.5 40, and if you're one of them and you have good grades, then that's going to be a good opportunity for you. If you're one of them and you don't have good grades, then there's five or six others that they can look at later. So grades are extremely important. You never want to be a reason why somebody won't recruit you.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
So, what No, you're good. What are some habits you see in the most successful players you've coached?
I'd have to say being self advocacy, self driven. You know, I think we've all had situations where we felt like maybe the coach didn't like you, or you didn't get a fair chance, or whatever the case may be. But
Hmm.
I'll think of a kid, for example, a kid by the name of Cale Reeder. Cale was a great player for us almost 10 years ago now, which is pretty crazy to think about. But Cale wanted to play multiple positions. He wanted to be good. So Cale did things to make himself good. He never blamed the coaches. He never,
Hmm.
he just did what he had to do to be successful. And I think I didn't have to tell him that. He just knew that, hey, if I want to be good, I've got to practice more. I've got to do this more. And I think, so just that self-driven mentality where it's not anybody else's fault. If I work hard, good things will happen. I think that's ultimately, you have to wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to do this. And you can't have, anytime I have to tell a kid consistently to do something, they're not going to be successful. They've got to hit that alarm clock running like I'm going. If I have to beg a kid to play football, he's probably not going to be successful in football. Like, you have to have that
Yeah.
drive and that I want to be successful inside of you to be successful at anything. If you don't wake up wanting to, make 100 free throws every day, then you're not going to be good. And it doesn't matter what a coach tells you or what if they don't like you. That doesn't matter. It's all about you personally being driven. So I think what I always say is coaches get way too much credit and coaches get way too much blame. And I don't deserve any credit for Cale Reeder. Any coach in America could have coached Cale Reeder. Um, I don't deserve any credit for that. But there's also situations where we've had kids who've not done their, have not worked as hard as they should have. And, those are years where we haven't been as successful as we would have liked. And, it is what it is. So you got to have that self drive, self motivation.
So, furthermore, we're going to move on to like a different topic, more of like the future and the recency bias of Yorkville football. So,
Okay.
first, what excites you most about the future of Yorkville football?
Um, I would say just our standard and necessary, and I guess not necessarily standard, but our things that we already have in place. So what I mean by that is our youth tackle program is tremendous. We've had a great relationship with our youth travel program. They do a great job of getting kids excited about football and being successful. Um, we have middle school football at the eighth grade level. There's very few schools in the area that have middle school football anymore. I think that's really important to get kids to work with other coaches, to see the importance of grades, and just be a part of a school program. I think is really important, and that really then makes our job a lot easier as high school coaches. So, I think that there's a lot of things that are already in place that really I didn't have anything to do with, and then those help us, build the numbers. I would say, like when I came in as a coach. Um, I came in with a lot of good football coaches, and we all learned together and worked well together. And then, I'd say probably I'd say probably 8 to 10 years ago, we'd lost a lot of those good football coaches. They're having families, they're in a new position at school where they can't coach, and so we lost a lot of good coaches. But right now, as I mentioned, we've got some former coaches or some coaches that were former players, and I'm really excited about our coaching staff. We've got a great mix of young coaches, some experience. We've got some retired guys that are still coming around that are helpful. So I'm just really excited about our coaching staff working with the kids that our community provides. We've got energetic coaches. We've got, just some people that relate really well with kids. And so I think we're just really, really lucky to have some great coaches and a great system in place for Yorkville kids to be successful. Um, and I think too, just the opportunity to play against some really good teams. It's exciting to play against some of the tremendous programs, as I mentioned earlier. We're playing some of the top notch programs year in and year out. Like week one, we're starting with Crete Moni, who is consistently a great team. So I'm just excited about the opportunities our kids have to play against the best. You can't ever say, Yorkville doesn't play anybody, or to your point about recruiting, we're not going to get seen. Like you're playing against the best players in the state of Illinois, and that's pretty exciting as a
Hmm.
program and as a coach to say, hey, we're playing against the best, and we're going to be challenged every week.
So, my next question is, what has made the program so successful in recent years?
We've got good players. It's very simple, and we've had good players. So, I think I did a better job of coaching in some of the years where we weren't successful. Um, you
Hmm.
know, I look back on some things, last year. I'm like, man, I could have done this to win us that one game, and um, so I think when you just take things for you just, I think it's I wouldn't say you take things for granted, but you when kids can do things naturally, like throw the ball to that spot in a deep out, that's something that you can't coach that, and so you're just like, man, that's, and then you kind of get used to it, and then the next year you're like, okay, well, now we have to start, with this situation or this, as I mentioned, that unique aspect. But um, anyways, we've had really good football players. They have been self motivated. They've been great leaders, and I've been happy to just kind of hand out the uniforms, make sure kids have helmets and shoulder pads, and the kids have done it. And I just try to provide a venue or avenue, I should say. A better way to say that is to do that and make it so that the bus shows up on time and we get there and we know how to huddle, and just try to stay out of their way. And so it's been all kids, 100%. And I think anybody that's come and watched us play would know that. And I think our coaches would agree with that too.
So, do you have a favorite memory from your time coaching at Yorkville?
Oh man, I got a bunch of them. Let's see here. Um, I would say a couple. I would say number one, just looking in the stands and seeing the amount of people that are now coming to see our games. Um, just it's just fun to be a part of it. It's like that's why we just why our players and coaches coach is to work with kids and to make a difference, and it really feels like that. So our community is just outstanding. That would be like a general memory. Um, I would say um, as a coach, a favorite memory would be um, I just some of our like in the current conference we're in. There's some really good football teams, as I've mentioned multiple times, and I think a lot of people,
Mm.
uh, were me included, were unsure if we'd be able to compete with some of the teams in our level. Um, and I think that first year we joined our conference, um, we were able to at least I don't know how many games we won. I don't really care, but I felt like at least we competed with our opponents and proved that we
Mm.
could, you know, play with some of the better teams in the state. And I thought that was a time like that. That was a very stressful summer and season because I really wasn't sure if we would be able to compete with some of these teams, and so that really was made it feel like, hey, we can hang with some of the better teams in the state. Now I don't know if we'll win any games with the better teams in the state. This year we may not win any, um, but we've been able to at least um, you know have some opportunities to be successful against some really really well coached teams and some really athletic football teams. And I think that's been a great memory. And then lastly, I had an opportunity to coach my dad. Um, not many people get an opportunity to do that. I had some really fond memories. Sometimes where he told me like you can't say that to kids, like you got to be careful. Uh, sometimes where he told me, hey, you shouldn't do that. But
Yeah.
which I needed to hear, and that's something that not many people get an opportunity to do is to coach with their dad, and so those are some memories I'll never forget. And then, like I said, just the memories of having the kids come back and say, "Hey, coach, thank you," or "Hey, I'm doing this now." We had a kid this year that tried out for an NFL team. I mean, that how much better can it get than that? I mean, that's what it's all about. And
Yeah.
having those kids come back and want to be a part of your program, it's because they could easily go somewhere else and or not come back, and it means a lot.
Mhm. So, my next topic is leadership and life lessons. So, what's the biggest lesson football can teach for young people?
That's a good one. I would say biggest life lesson. I would say that there's no shortcuts. That
Hmm.
no matter there's no shortcuts to anything in football, and there's no shortcuts to anything in life. And so I would say, you may think like you can get away with not doing this on this week in practice, and then you come to a game and it's like, whoa, I should have done this. It's just very humbling, and there's
Hmm.
no shortcuts. You have to live by a process. You have to do things the right way, and if you do, you'll be successful. If you don't, you won't. And so I think if you find anybody that's a former football player, when I was hiring teachers, if I saw anybody that was a athlete, or somebody that was involved, whether it's in chess, whether it's in speech team, when you found somebody that was involved in things in high school, odds are they learned some of those life lessons, how to work with people, and the fact that you can't make shortcuts. And so those are the kind of people I'd want to hire when I wasn't an opportunity to hire people. And I bet if you were to find any athletes or people that were involved in high school, they're ultimately going to be successful in life because of those lessons that you asked about. It's very, very important. Hence why I want my kids involved in sports, because there's all kinds of great lessons in all athletics and activities.
So earlier, you said how you want your players to have confidence in their play style and everything. So, what advice would you give to a student who is struggling with confidence or adversity?
I would tell them they're not alone. um, that they're not the first student that's had adversity or that's had issues or is not as confident as they'd like to be. Um, so that'd be the first thing, is that this is not rare. This happens to high school kids. It happened to me. And then I think I would also, kind of going along with what I just said, is let them know that you got their back. Um, I think, like I said, people are questioned more now than they've ever been, and 100% kids are questioned more than they've ever been, and that creates a less confident society. And I think one big thing as a coach is you have to let people know that, hey, you're gonna make mistakes, and I understand that, but I'm not gonna, we're not going to, um, we're not going to kick you off the team, like within reason, obviously. Um, but if you make a
Yeah,
mistake that you're trying to work hard at, I got your back. Like, we're going to support you. I think that's really important. I think that's probably, looking at some of the other questions you've asked me, thinking about them, that's probably one of the most important things I can do for a kid, is show them that I've got, I'm supporting them, because they're questioned all the time, and the more that we can be supportive
yeah.
of kids, the more successful they're going to be. So, to answer your question, they're not alone. This is not the first time it's ever happened, and I will support you in anything that you do, as long as you're attempting to do things in the right way.
hmm So, what is something you hope every player takes away from their time in your program?
I hope they have fun. We've had kids that have got hurt early in the year for whatever reason, and I still want them to enjoy their experience. We've had kids that don't play as much as they would like to have, but I still want them to have a good experience and have fun. So I would say, just looking back with laughter and smiling about something that occurred. Um, I think that would be something I would love for every kid to take away. I know I'm not expecting every kid to like me. I know that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Um, but I do want them to at least have fun, and provide an opportunity for them to have a couple laughs and enjoy some of the things we do.
So, and then the final question is, what keeps you passionate about coaching and working with student athletes?
Another great question. I would say, as I mentioned, with why it could not be some other jobs where you don't have like a beginning and end to the season. I enjoy the challenge of doing it every year. And I think I'm also a creature of habit, where I enjoy
hmm
summer camp. I enjoy the grind of watching film on a Saturday to get prepared for the next week. Um, I just enjoy that challenge. And then I think, now that I'm a little older and doing a little reflecting, I think I have a problem with adrenaline. I enjoy,
Yeah.
uh, that opportunity to try to, like, I look for ways to try to get my adrenaline going. Um, so, for example, I love to go fishing when I'm not coaching football. I like to try to trick fish, and like my adrenaline is going. I love to fish for muskie in particular, and they're really tough fish to
hmm
catch. You got to trick them. You got to do your research, and when you get one, like, it's like winning a playoff game. It's exhilarating, and I think that I'm an adrenaline junkie, and that's what drives me. And I don't know what I would do without coaching. To be honest with you, I would definitely have to find another channel to find, to get me going and excited about whatever the case may be. So I think that's a big driving force for me, and that challenge to try to each year to shape that group of kids. They're always different every year. and it's a big challenge. And I want every year those kids to have a good experience, and I take it personally every year. Um, and so I enjoy that challenge.
So then now into our last section, we have it's kind of more of like the fun questions. The viewer questions is what people ask me to ask you.
Okay,
So pretty much the first question is from a despondent Cubs fan. What is your pregame meal?
it's a great question as well. And this has been a pregame meal throughout um, high school as well when I was a player and when I was in college. And I don't know if anybody else ever does this, but it's chocolate milk. So I might mix in some things here and there, like some combos, some chips, But the thing that's been
Yeah.
constant for 25 years is chocolate milk, and you can't just get any kind of chocolate milk. It's got to be good chocolate milk. I don't know if you're looking for any advertisers or not, but Oberweis chocolate milk. I mean, that's just where it's at. So um, that's my pregame meals, and it's not really a meal, but got to have chocolate milk before every game for whatever reason. I don't know why, but it's been a tradition.
So the next one is you kind of answered this already, but what are your favorite hobbies outside of work? Overtime, Otis.
Yeah, I would say, you know, hang with my kids. I obviously love my kids and spend time with them and my family. They're very supportive of our program, and they love being there. So spending time with my kids first and foremost, watching them play sports or just doing anything. So I first being a dad, um, and trying to be a decent husband. My wife also works in the district, so I'm really lucky there. But then, as I mentioned, fishing is my second passion. I have like a target list of fish I want to catch, and so each year I kind of try to knock one off, and that includes traveling then obviously, and so being with my family and then fishing is pretty much it, and then coaching football.
The next question is, what is your favorite movie? Nate asked this question.
Favorite movie? Hmm. I'd have to say two, both very similar. But I think my number one would be Gladiator. Um,
Okay.
I love the challenge that Russell Crowe's characters put throughout that movie. Being in the arena, I kind of relate to that a little bit. I'm nowhere near as tough as Russell Crowe, but you know, just that challenge. I like that challenge. I love the way he reacts to things. I think there's some great quotes in that movie. Um, and I think another one, and I'm a history teacher also, or at least was. And another one of my favorite movies is Saving Private Ryan. Again, just the challenges those guys went through.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty historically accurate for the most part. I know there's some people that are haters on it, but um, again, just the tough situations those people were put in that film really make it suspenseful for me, and I enjoy watching it for sure. So those two, anytime those two are on TV, I'm watching them.
Yeah. Next question is from Gideon. Favorite sports teams?
Hopefully nobody gets upset with me on this, but I'm a huge Packer fan. Love the Green Bay Packers. Um, and my dad was from Wisconsin, and so I really didn't have it. So to my credit, I didn't have a choice growing up. It was the Packers, and that was
Yeah.
it. And so we always try to make it to a game every year. So I'm a big Packers fan. And other than that, I'm a Chicago fan. So hopefully the Cub fan that asked the question earlier is not upset with me. But I'm a White Sox fan. And then Bulls and Blackhawks. So those will all be my teams. And um, college, I'm kind of depends on the sport. My sister went to Duke, so I'm a Duke fan in basketball. I also like Wisconsin basketball, although I think Illinois' coaches in basketball and football are both tremendous. So I'm kind of, I root for them when they're not playing Wisconsin. But yeah, in
Mhm.
college it's more of a sport by sport thing. But yeah, and then I got a buddy that's at Texas at TCU, so I'm now a TCU fan as well. And then any team where I have a former player playing, so like Wyoming, big Wyoming
Nice.
fan. Um, I got a kid that's gonna be playing at UConn this year, so I'll be a UConn fan. So yeah, college I'm kind of uh, I have several, I guess I'd say.
So, kind of leading off to that question, he asked another one. Who are some players you like from all these sports
Uh,
teams?
Sports teams. Let's see here. We'll go with football first. And do you want current players or past players? What are you thinking?
You can do whatever.
All
Current,
right.
past,
Let's see
future.
here. We'll go. I really liked Micah Hyde. He was a safety. He played for the Packers. Finished with the Buffalo Bills. I just felt like he was always in the right spot. I felt like he really, really did a good job
Yeah.
of knowing his opponent. Um, I don't think he was the most athletic player that has ever played in the NFL, but I felt like he was just in the right spot. He was smart and he was very humble. I thought I just really, really enjoyed watching him play. And then another Packer would be Jordy Nelson. Jordy Nelson, man, he was fast and man, he could catch. He was tough. I never heard him say anything ever. I don't know if he ever said anything in any newspaper or anything. He just was humble, man. He got it
Yeah.
done. So I loved watching him play because he was so consistent and was just a really, really good player. Um, let's see here. I would say um, baseball. Jermaine Dye was my guy. I love watching him play baseball. Great outfielder. He seemed like he was always clutch. I love Jermaine Dye for the White Sox. Won a World Series. He'd be one of the top. And then I would say basketball. I'm pretty generic. Michael Jordan. I grew up in the Jordan era, um, and his competitiveness is unrivaled. Just can't say enough. Obviously, speaks for himself there, Michael Jordan. But that'd be my basketball guy.
Yeah. So next question is, do you have a favorite car? Tyler Hebel asked this. Is there a car
Favorite
that you really
car.
like?
So I'd say that as I've gotten older, that's definitely changed. Um,
Hmm.
but hmm, that's a good one. Let's see here. I would, I'd have to say, it'd have to be like a 91, 92 Ford Mustang convertible. Um,
Okay.
that would be it. Again, looking back at the childhood, those are still like pretty. I think they're kind of timeless cars. Um, that would be one. And then if I was to go really, really old, I would say like a 67 Camaro. I know it's kind of bad to go Chevy and Ford, but man, some of those older Chevy Camaros are beautiful cars. And if I had to pick one right now, the new car, I'm old fashioned. I just want a Chevy Tahoe. Um, I love the way those look. So I would say just a simple Chevy Tahoe if I could get anything now. I'm currently sitting in a Volkswagen Jetta. It's a great car, but definitely not my favorite car.
Yeah.
But yeah, those would be my three that I picked.
All right, next question is, do you think deep dish is the best pizza? Tommy asked this question.
Oh man, that's a great question as well. I'm gonna have to say I'm gonna have to agree and say yes. I think being from this area, it's like something to be proud of, and so I'm gonna say yes. I mean, nobody else does it like Chicago. I've had it other places. I'm sure you've had as well. Um, Lou Malnati's again, new advertiser hopefully for you. It's as good as it gets, man. That's great stuff. So I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say that is a affirmative to that question.
I agree with you. I love deep dish.
Yeah.
Okay, next question is another food question. Favorite fast food and what do you get from there? Michael asked this question.
Mm, I don't know if this is considered fast food, but I'm gonna go Jersey Mike's, and I'm gonna go. So if you don't consider that fast food, I can give you a different one. But I'm gonna go Jersey Mike's, and I'm gonna go a Philly cheesesteak at Jersey Mike's. I think it's the closest thing to a real Philly cheesesteak there is. So that'd be my answer.
Hmm.
Fast food, Jersey Mike's, Philly cheesesteak.
Okay. Next question is, what was your first job growing up? Carson asked this question.
So my first job growing up was I got a couple that I'll share. One, my real first job, but I didn't really work there a whole long. Was I worked at LeBeau's Health Club. Kevin LeBeau lived in my neighborhood growing up, and so I think he just felt bad for me and hired me. And I worked there just a couple of nights, so it wasn't really a real job. But probably my most unique job was I worked at a car wash, a Landmark car wash in Batavia, and I worked there on Sundays because I was playing sports during the week. And it really, to your question about cars, it really created a love for cars with me and like an appreciation for cars. Um, and so they would go through the car wash. I'd clean them up, I'd dry them off, excuse me, and then wait for the customer to come up and hope to get a tip. And so that was how I made money. Sometimes I get 50 cents, and other times I get $10. But working at the car wash, that was a fun one, and learned a lot there for sure.
Next question. Are there past students that you've coached that then became NFL/professional football players? And this was asked by my mother.
So I have never coached, or I've coached kids that have tried out for professional teams. One by the name of Jason Lawan. Jason Lawan went to Illinois
Hmm.
State. He was a defensive tackle at Illinois State. And then the cool thing was my son and I had an opportunity to go see him at training camp for the Green Bay Packers. So Jason had
Cool.
a tryout with them.
That's
He
really
was
cool.
All right, everybody. So that was the interview. I'm sorry that it was cut off a little bit short. His phone overheated, so we weren't able to finish all the fan questions. But we got through every single question though. Just wanted to say thank you, Dan McGuire, for doing this interview with me. It's greatly appreciated. I wasn't able to say that at the end there, but anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this interview and stay tuned for another one very soon.